Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order, and before we bring Sweetwater Medics back up to finish that item, as we are live now, we just want to notify any of our listeners that for the Natrium site that was supposed to be announced today, it was announced to us just probably 15 minutes ago, and the site for the first Natrium in the state of Wyoming was selected, and it was Kemmer, Wyoming, Lincoln County, and that. So we'd like to congratulate Lincoln County for being selected, but also, you know, location of the first site in this region benefits Sweetwater County as well and everybody. So I look at it as hopefully since there will be more, hopefully we hope we're in line for maybe the second one, but at the same token, I see it as a win-win for Sweetwater County, working closely with Lincoln County. So I'd like to congratulate them. I'd like to thank Rocky Mountain Power and Terra Power for the work they put into it. And that in the selection process, I also want to thank SCDC, Sweetwater Economic Development Coalition, that membership for all the efforts put forth in trying to recruit that organization, primarily under Eric Bingham, as well as Kayla McDonald at the county that heads up our SCDC and has oversight, as well as that board that worked very hard with them, and also whomever else was associated from both cities, as well as the membership of that board. So before we go into Sweetwater Medics, would any of the commissioners like to comment on the Terra selection, the Natrium selection? Commissioner Lloyd, do you want to comment? No. Covered it?
I would just echo pretty much your
Okay,
sentiments.
thanks.
So I think you covered it well, Doc.
All right, thank you very much. So if there's no other comment regarding the Natrium selection, I would ask that Mr. Gaddy please come back up and we will resume with this agenda item. And I think just moments before we interrupted, we were talking about kind of where we were going to go as a commission with regard to your request. Is there anything else, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, just
Commissioner Lloyd.
one question for Mr. Gaddy as we talk about, I know the current contract says there has to be 4 paramedics on at all time. Am I correct?
The current contract says that the staffing is of ALS and BLS.
Okay.
Yes, but yes.
Guess as we look at the situations changing, are we at a point, and I don't know if we have time to do that in the constraints given, is that the needed staffing with the current situation? Or could we look at changing the contract down the road if it would benefit you financially? I mean, to help both parties on aspects. I guess I just want to know, are we able to meet the current needs with the 4, or could we do it with less?
That is a great question. And let me just give you some statistics. So over probably I think it's 27.82% of the time, there are multiple calls going on within that jurisdiction. That in of itself, I think allows or justifies the redundancy of the second staffed unit, like you asked. We did make a cut. We used to staff a 5th person. You and I had this discussion in detail. We used to staff a 5th person and we had drivers and stuff that could help facilitate those long distance transports. As soon as we stopped doing those transports, that person was what we called a floater. If they were not helping with a long distance transport, they were filling in for sick calls, they were doing special events, they were doing other things, and they provided a supervisory role during the nights and weekends. As soon as we saw that revenue source was going away, we cut that. We tried diligently to see, what does that mean? Okay, so the best indicator, that because of the floating nature of what that person did, the best indicator that we were able to do is look at what our total payrolls were without them on it. And we were saving shy of $3,000, somewhere around there. And there were 27 pay cycles payday cycles remaining or in this fiscal year. So we estimated that cost was between $70,000 and $75,000. And so that helped us come up with the figure of asking you for the 235. So we did make cuts, but your question, to be frank, I think that we do need those 2 ambulances staffed.
Thank you. Other questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Toman.
Well, I would like to hear from our accountant, Bonnie Berry, if she has some input. Because I had one more question on that. Was it a balance sheet you presented? Profit and loss. You show net income, 308,741. So I don't understand why you need 235,000 from us.
Well, great question. The county and Sweetwater Medics have a vendor relationship. We're not a government agency. We must make money, and no vendor that you deal with has an obligation to operate in the red to provide goods and services to the county. I think we would all agree with that. Although we've had a different type of relationship over the years. I provided you that to show you that with that revenue source that went away. So it doesn't take, I mean, there is a discrepancy between what costs are going to be and what revenue is going to be, and it's going to be in the negative without that 235,000 additional dollars. To be quite honest with you, and I'll be open and frank with this, that's giving me an outlook of about $60,000 plus or minus a little bit in the black by the end of the year. And I don't think that is ridiculous for a business to have that small of a profit on a venture like this.
Very good. More questions?
I would like to hear from our accountant.
Miss Berry, would you mind coming forward to the podium?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just a quick question. I know one of the things, Ron has shared a lot of his financial information with us, and I know that's what probably Bonnie is going to talk about. Is that something that should be done openly in the public, or if we're in the real confines, or is that something we should move more to an executive session? I don't know what Bonnie's comments are going to be, but I just want to make sure that we're careful on that piece of it.
Mr. De Leon.
So the nature of the agreement is that those financials will be provided. I think if they're, and I don't know what specific, I think Sweetwater Medics knows what's been provided, and so I am not currently aware of something that needs to be an executive on that front.
I just want to make sure we're.
Yeah, I think, based on the contract and, does talk about financials being provided, and I don't think there's any secret. When I looked at what you provided us, I would, is there anything that you don't want divulged? All right, so, and that's what was provided for Bonnie, as well as I think last year's budget. So, okay. Questions for Bonnie? Mary? Commissioner Tolman?
I just would like your insights.
Okay, I guess first of all, and I apologize, I wasn't here earlier. I didn't realize this was going to be discussed in the open meeting. But I did see, and stop me if I am divulging too much personal information or financial information, I guess I should say. I did see the current profit and loss that shows the net income of 308,000. I did have some questions on those line items, but those are specific to Ron, so I can ask those later. But and then I also did see, I assume the transfer spreadsheet that I got was for a full fiscal year. Was that July 1st? Okay. Okay. So it looks like you are gonna lose from what you've collected so far. It does look like you still have a little bit outstanding, but $475,000 of revenue approximately. How much how much costs are associated with that revenue? Because obviously if that revenue is going away, the costs are too. So I guess my question was, what's the cost associated with that?
One of the costs, that's a great question. One of the costs.
You need to come up to the microphone, please.
There's going to be costs with fuel. Yeah, like I said, we already cut that staffing position. So other than that, fuel and some maintenance, the staffing costs that we already cut and some fuel costs and for providing those transports would be reduced a little bit.
Thank you, Ron.
What about the payroll costs? What are the payroll costs associated with those transports? Do you have payroll costs going away other than the?
We cut that position. Yes. That position.
So were you not staffed? So when those transports were going on, were you not staffing for? I apologize. I missed.
We were staffed heavy so we could do those.
Okay, so you were staffed with 5 so that you could do the transports and you've eliminated the 1 position.
That is correct.
So you didn't have, so while you were doing the transports, you were not staffed with 4 locally.
We utilized the 5th person in calling it.
So you had 3.
So we maintained it unless it was an emergent situation, which contract.
Okay, and then that 5th person, that was not a 24/7, that was just a,
No, it was 16 at most, sometimes.
what do you mean 16 at most?
16 hours, or 12 hours a day, sometimes.
Okay,
It's when it was a dynamic position.
okay,
Utilized when we could.
okay, so you only had that,
And I would literally have to go back every day to see what we did with that person to figure it out. That's why I use the payroll amounts. to
Okay.
Figure out what savings we were going to do.
okay. All right, so is that how you came up with what was your additional request?
35.
235,000, and you're currently running it net income of 308,000.
It's a really complicated equation. I took the 475, deducted what our profit margin was last year, and gave me a little buffer, just in case.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay. Okay, what are some of, I don't know if you want to get into this right now. I just have, I had requested a general ledger and I didn't receive it because I guess there was some personal or health information that was confidential in there. And if you want to send that to me and I can look at it at a later time, that's fine. If you don't want to answer these questions in a public meeting. But I just had some questions on what some of these things on the profit and loss were. Do you want me to address them now or? Okay. Okay, should we maybe address this at a later time then?
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, is that fine with the commission?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Are there any other
Questions
questions?
for Bonnie?
I just, Mr. Chairman, I just think that we should hold off on making the decision until those questions are answered
I would agree with
for
that.
Bonnie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I address?
Yes, please.
Uh,
Mr. Gatti.
I totally respect the diligence and provided all of the information, but to be honest with you, it is irrelevant. I know that what it's going to cost, given the fact that that revenue source has been eliminated, there is not going to be sufficient funds for me to accept responsibility for the rest of the contract without that additional money. I wanted to be very open. I wanted to be frank. I wanted to show you guys, have we made some money over these contracts? Yes, that's what we're supposed to do. There's nothing wrong with that. We shouldn't be maligned because we made some money in the past. That's what the vendor relationship is supposed to do. I came to you with honesty. I've always been open with you guys and showed you this. I hate this model. I wish it wasn't this way, but it is. Okay, that's the shortfall of the upcoming 6 months. And irrespective of what, and quite honestly, I shouldn't have to come up here and be judged at whether or not I'm a good business businessman or how I conduct my business. We don't do that with any other vendor. But I've been open with you guys because this is an important issue. And so that's why I've always provided everything for all of you folks, unless I think it might be a violation of law of HIPAA or something, because we are in the medical field. But that is why, and this timeline is tight, and I apologize for that. It wasn't my doing. But I've given you every open and frank reason. There is no hidden, we will be the champions for change. Okay. And I don't like this model any more than you guys do. But in order for us to continue, I'm asking that you make the motion and approve an additional 235,000 for us to complete this contract. And we will be involved with everything about change. You can count on us for that.
Mr. Gaddy, when you talk about your timeline, what is it?
Well, this is the last commissioner meeting before the end of the month, which our contract requires us to give you a 30-day notification, and that would be at the end of November. And so that's why we have such a compressed timeline.
Commissioners? Anything else? Commissioner Lloyd, anything?
Deep marination at this point. So
We've kind of beat it up pretty good. So let me make sure everybody's had a question. Do you have a question or are you ready?
Going to make a statement.
Okay, go ahead.
I agree with Mr. Gaddy that, he's been, while this is maybe a little closer, more emotionally charged than our roads or bridges, we don't castigate R&D Sweep or DiBernardi for making money when Gene has a contract with them. We approved a $31,000 change today to a contract without seeing financials and things like that. So I very much appreciate the time that he's taken to come and visit me personally. And I know he's reached out to every one of you. I don't know how many he's visited to visit with you about this and many other issues over the years that I've been here. Is it where he wants to be? No. Is it where we want things to be? No. But I do believe that this is necessary, and that's my thought. I think we're doing our due diligence, but I also think there's probably a time to say, okay, thank you for the information. Let's make a decision.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Shanefield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to state that I agree with Commissioner Smith. And I also wanted to state that, we know this model doesn't work. We know that it's not functioning well. We still have to have ambulance services through when we can resolve this issue. We've fumbled through it for the last year and a half. All of our EMS crews have been put on the line. And even Bailey said the same thing, like she's losing employees. It's not a stable situation. We shouldn't be doing that either way. And our community is concerned as well. So I have a mother at home who is in her 70s worried about whether she's going to have access to ambulance if she needs to call 911. And that's not a situation that we should put our community in at all. And we already have done that once. And so I think that we know the model doesn't work. We know we need to fix it. We have to have ambulance in the meantime. We need to, to take all of these things into consideration and move forward and put our feet to the fire and get this issue solved so that it's a success.
Okay, thank you. Other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Commissioner Lloyd.
growing up, one of my favorite books was Catch-22, and I kind of feel, I honestly feel that's where I'm at now. I don't know how I feel about the extra requests, but I almost feel like I don't have a choice. I am bound to make sure our citizens have a EMS system at this point. I really am not sure if I totally agree with this, but I also do agree that we need ambulance. So I really feel it's a true quandary for me. And so I'll probably sit here and marinate to decide where I'll go, but I just want to make it clear that this is very difficult, and having the time frame that we have to get it solved in makes it more difficult. But I think Lauren and Jeff both kind of hit it in their comments. The key is a long-term solution has to be found. We can't just keep saying it. We have to get together and make a long-term solution happen. And we like even if we get a midterm solution in 3 to 5 months and a long-term solution in 3 years, we have to go in a different direction, because I agree, we got to create stability in the EMS, but we can't have these points, because I also don't like basically having to make a decision if I say, no, we don't have ambulance. So that's where I truly feel as I'm at right now as a catch-22. I do appreciate Ron and all his openness and I do agree, he shared everything with me, and I do appreciate that. And I always enjoy talking with you, Ron, but I just feel like I'm in a catch-22. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Anything else? You want to say anything?
Well, we appreciate the services. We know you do really good work and your people do really good work.
They're outstanding. Yes, they are. They're
But we
amazing.
feel like we get held up for $250,000 whenever you feel like you need
I
more
know,
money.
and I'm sorry.
That's a
it-
tough one to
I
buy.
don't like it either. I don't like being up here. I didn't want to be here.
Has any other questions? I think just one of the other things I'd like to comment and point out is with regard to the contract, as we move forward and this type of thing, I mean, with this particular action, it basically opens the contract back up to change the amount. How amenable are you going to be if we request some other language in that contract be changed?
What, it all depends on.
Well,
whether-
we're going to review it, and look at it, and that type of thing. It may fall in lines with some of the requirements that are in it and that type of thing. Those things just occur. I had in the back of my head, Commissioner Smith, help me out. You know, some of the things we may look at in the contract.
Things that we've talked about, the exclusivity clause was one that was.
Oh, I know where
caused
you're
a
going.
little
Yeah,
bit of heartburn. So if we can make changes.
listen,
Throw
I'm
it
going to be
in.
frank with you. I don't see this being I think we're going to have an intergovernmental solution. Okay, I feel really good about that. I don't want to come before you as a businessman ever again. I want us to build an intergovernmental ambulance service that takes care of this issue. I'm not worried about what the contract says or any of that. I hope we never have another contract.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that's being said. The one thing it comes down to, and any suggestion for change that may have come about, comes down to funding. Who's going to fund it?
You're right.
And ultimately, that'll be interesting.
You know, Lauren and I talked yesterday, if I can speak candidly, spoke yesterday and you know, we keep saying, oh, the ambulance problem, the ambulance problem, we've never had an ambulance problem. We've had a problem with wanting to pay for it, and we've had a problem with trusting one another. And that's where the real issue is. If we can trust each other and commit to each other and by God's drive the stake on the wins and quit worrying about the losses, take a win and build from that, because that's what happens in politics, right? Oh, well, what about this? And what about that? And well, we're going to talk about this too. Let's take some wins. And this is the one to do it on. If we're going to die on a sword, let it be this one. Let's fix this issue of intergovernmental cooperation.
Thank you, Mr. De Leon.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just making sure I'm following I'm not sure where you're headed, but I'm just making sure. So I'm
Yeah.
hearing the potential for a modification of the amount in the amount of 235,000. I'm hearing the potential for modification of the exclusivity component. And I heard a modification of the requirement that there are 4 people at all time. And so those are the components that I heard. Let me know.
The 4 people wouldn't need modified.
It was already in there.
It's in there.
I understand that it's in there. What I heard is, Mr. Chairman, is that that can be removed. Certainly doesn't have to be applied. The requirement that there are 4 Sweetwater medics, the amount would be 235. If they chose to use 4, if they chose to use 2, there just wouldn't be a state, the restriction that there must be four, the restriction that, there's a mandatory component. It's just getting that off the table. If that's what you as a board, I heard that mentioned, and I'm just making sure when I get the request that I document accurately.
Thank you. Any problems with what you heard?
No, sir.
None at all. So with that, and that type of thing, the one other thing I would ask is I do, when I think back of the resolution years ago that's still in place, there's oversight by the ambulance board with regard to finance and services and that type of thing. Does your board know that you were coming before us today, understanding where you were at financially?
We haven't had a meeting, but I did let some of them know that what was going on and I've been working with them. Yes.
All right, so you'll review that at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, other questions, Commissioner? I think we're ready to move forward with this. We have before us a request to amend the amount in the contract, or not amend, but do an additional $235,000 and also authorize our attorney to make some adjustments to the wording in the contract based on what he felt he heard. Is that correct, Mr. Gaddy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so with that in mind, what's your pleasure, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Smith?
to give clarity to Sweetwater Medics and their timing need, I make a motion that we approve the $235,000 additional and then have the contract presented to us for approval at our next meeting with changes.
Okay, Commissioners, you've heard the motion by Commissioner Smith. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shanefield. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lloyd?
before we cast votes, I just want to make a comment. I will be voting yes, but it's very hesitantly. And I'm only doing so to ensure our citizens of Sweetwater County have the ambulance they needed in Rock Springs.
I think that's what we're all doing. I'm not doing it for any other reason.
Well, and just in case somebody happens to vote no, there's always that liberty that I'll ask, does anybody want to change their vote? So I'll make that announcement ahead of time. So anyhow, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Same sign, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. DeLeon, if you will email me the changes and stuff and we'll review them quick. And I'm pretty sure I know where you're going, so I think we're good. So,
Yeah, and then we'll approve it at the next meeting.
and thank you guys. And we can talk about that stuff and well, I'm
Please.
open. We're open to everything. We've always kind of viewed this as a public-private partnership, but it's not. But we will be champions of change as we go along. So thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you for being patient with us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, with that, Commissioners, that brings us down to anything for the good of the order, or is there something you want to add at the next meeting? Nothing? With that, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. We'll leave contracts there in case something comes up, but other than that, there will be personnel in the executive session, so entertain a motion to go into executive session for
Mr.
personnel
Chairman.
and possibly contracts.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Yes,
Do we still have commissioner comments?
I got those down on the bottom, sir.
Oh,
after-
sorry, I missed that. I apologize.
After the executive session. You okay with that?
Way fine with that. I just missed
All right,
that.
thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lloyd. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Motion carries. We will do